Welcome to another episode of Eagle Rock Hi-Fi. Today we're going to talk about a buyer's guide, things to look out for when buying used equipment. Today we're going to talk about a few things that you should look out for with different types of equipment when buying used equipment. And to go through a few of these pieces of equipment, I've got my dad here who's seen a lot of equipment throughout the years, and he's just really knowledgeable on what to look out for on various types of equipment. So I'm going to kind of give it to him, and I'll kind of pop in to ask some questions here and there. So I'll let him take it from here.
So what do you want to talk about first? Cassette decks?
Yeah, we'll start with the cassette deck down here.
Yeah, that's a good choice because a lot of those, I think that's the one where you have to kind of watch out the most, right?
Yeah, these ones, they're pretty finicky
Yeah.
when they're used and they haven't been touched.
Yeah, some of them are very simple, right, in their design, and some of them are really sophisticated. But the thing is, when you're looking for a used one, whether it be a marketplace or a Facebook marketplace or whatever, right, even in an ad, not so much eBay because they do a return, they have a return policy, right?
Yeah.
But I find that a lot of cassette decks is you'll see a lot of ads where somebody will say, just needs belt. That's the most common one, right?
Yeah.
Just needs belt. The other one that you'll see is...
And they make it sound super easy to do as well. Just
yeah,
needs a belt.
Just needs a belt.
Yeah.
That's all, right? First of all, there's usually more than one belt, right?
Yeah.
The belts are, in my experience, I've fixed a lot of tape decks, right?
Yeah.
Fixed a lot of tape decks, and the belts. I mean, if you've done belts on the same unit over and over, even that can be difficult.
Yeah.
Right, and I've done some of them where it's been the same unit over and over many times, and the belt replacement is quite, it can be very difficult. You got to take a lot of things apart.
It's
a lot
not
of
just
times,
something you get in there and you pop the belt off and put more on.
No, it isn't.
It's buried underneath a bunch
all kinds of stuff you got to take off and everything. And usually the old belt, or not usually, but half the time I'd say the old belt has turned into like a gummy tar,
Yeah.
and you've got to clean all that up, right? Really well.
It doesn't really come off. You have to you have to use some kind of
You have to use
chemical.
isopropyl and break it down and clean it, and it's messy. It's
It takes
difficult.
forever.
And then you got to make sure you have the right size belts, because
Yeah.
if you've got the wrong size belts, it's going to cause problems, right?
And with that kind of whether it's turned to gum and broken, you don't have the old belt to
Right,
to
and there's
measure,
tricks
so-
to that too, right? So
Yeah,
you got
so
to
you
use
have
like
to
a
kind
piece
of-
of string and all that stuff, and I know some people have tried to use a rubber band. Even if it did work, right? That rubber band's going to break down in no time.
Yeah, that'll last.
It's going to
maybe
stretch,
a month.
dry out, maybe a month, 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is, it's going to dry out.
Yeah.
That's a stupid way of doing it, right? But yeah, there's several belts, and there's a lot of things that can go wrong. So that just needs a belt sounds real easy,
Yeah.
And
Because when you're replacing a belt too, like even the slightest amount of tension can. If it's got slightly too much tension, maybe reverse doesn't work.
or it doesn't work
right?
well, right? That's the other thing, right? Somebody will say something works. This applies to any piece of equipment, really, but it'll say that it works, right? And a lot of times that just means they plugged it in and a light came on. They saw a
They
light.
they put the power on.
That's
and
right.
The lights turned on. It works.
Yeah, and they say that
what
works,
they say.
right? Yeah. And then even so, if you're looking at a cassette deck, you see it on Marketplace, you go to see it, or you're at a sale or something, and you pop a cassette in there. A lot of times people say they don't have a cassette. That's probably true in most cases, but a lot of times, they're just trying to sell it. That they don't want, they've had problems, and they're, in their mind, they're just getting rid of it cheap anyway. So they may not want to reveal the problems, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of the problems will come about. A person will put a cassette in there, and they'll press play in it. You'll see it turn for that works, and they'll press stop. They'll press rewind. Rewinds for a few seconds. Okay. Yeah. Fast forward. Yeah. Good. And that's it. But one of the most common problems with cassette decks is that you press play, it'll play for a little while, then it'll shut off.
Yeah.
But that happens mostly with rewind or fast forward. Rewind for a little bit, then it'll shut off, right? So you have to keep pressing rewind, right? Sometimes it's working fine, and this might not be a disqualifier on a cassette deck, but a lot of times it won't rewind all the way. It rewinds real slow, right?
Yeah.
Some people just want to put the tape in and play, and that'll be fine for them, right? But some people want everything to work and be perfect, right? I mean, that's like in your store here. It's hard to, like something like this, to have it for sale. You have to have everything. You have to have everything working because somebody can bring it back. Marketplace, and this applies to any piece of equipment.
It doesn't matter.
Somebody they'll send a message, hey, you said this works. It doesn't work. I'm having a problem, you know? And you'll either get a response that says, sorry, sold as is, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the end of it, right?
Or they just block you.
Or they just block you, right?
Yeah,
And that's just
that-
the way
that's
it
the end
goes,
of it.
right? And that's why you look at something like this. What do you have this one? I think it's like $100, right?
$99.95.
Yeah, so it's $100, right? But it's a fully working tape deck. Everything works on it. It works well, and it's got new belts and all that stuff, right? So, you know, you look at something on, you might find something like that on Marketplace for $20, $30, right?
Yeah.
But if it doesn't work, it's garbage.
It's a
So
paper
you just
weight.
threw that away, right?
Yeah.
So you threw that away. So, yeah, you just got to be careful with that. Sometimes you might get lucky,
Yeah.
you know?
And the solder stuff as well. Like sometimes it's hard to find parts as well.
Yeah, hard to find parts and stuff.
Like,
yeah.
like belts, you can find like universal kits to try and make belts work. But
Yeah.
when it comes to specific components, they can be a little bit harder to.
Yeah,
to
even then it's
find.
hit and miss.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you got to put the belt on just to try it, and that means disassembly, reassembly,
Yeah, put it
disassembly,
together.
reassembly, you know, over and over and over.
Trying all the features. Oh, everything except for rewind works. Okay, so now I gotta go back and.
Yeah, and that doesn't even speak to the sound quality, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you know, it could have extremely dirty heads. It could have a head that doesn't, you know, could be defective completely, right? It could have sound only coming out of one side. There's a million things that could go wrong, right? It's just that, you know, I mean, best way I would give advice if somebody was going on Facebook Marketplace or something is make sure you're able to bring a tape with you, right? Because the person might say they
Bring
don't
a
have a
tape that you know is good.
Yep. And then, yeah, you make sure you know the tape is good. That's a good point because you could have you could have a really bad tape,
Yeah.
like some home recorded tape that's been in a
quality
garage,
is-
dirty, wet area. So if it's a good tape, you know, there's tapes that I have that are just complete, like nothing I would ever listen to.
Yeah.
But they're brand new, perfect for listening, testing a tape deck.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, bring a tape with you. Sometimes they won't have an amp, right? So you
Yeah.
can't even do that. That's a little bit difficult to deal with.
If in the ideal world, have them play it. Have them
Yeah,
hook it
most
up.
likely, even if you don't have the amp, that's the least likely problem is any of the sonic problem. I mean, if you're buying a cheap tape deck anyway, if you're
Yeah.
getting a Nakamichi or something really high end,
Yeah.
you know, it's probably going to be a different situation. The person you're buying from is probably going to have an amp, or if it's somebody just blowing it out, they just found in their basement, it's like $50 and it's a really nice Nakamichi.
Yeah.
You're not going to care anyway. You're going to
No,
run.
it's
You
a
won't just pay
Nakamichi,
to have it
it's-
fixed, or
yeah.
whatever, right? Buy it, get out of
The
it.
Nakamichi's probably the best brand for cassette decks.
Oh yeah,
right?
they're my favorite.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yeah. But yeah, this the main thing is even if they don't have an amp, you know, plug it in the wall, put in a tape, make sure it plays for I'd say at least 30 seconds.
Yeah,
You
make
see
sure-
it turning.
Make sure it goes fast forwards.
Yeah, make sure fast
Make sure
forward
it
for a good
rewinds.
while.
Yeah.
I would fast forward all the way to the end. It only takes a couple minutes, right?
Yeah, and the
And
same
then
for the
rewind it
reverse,
all the way
right?
to the end. Yeah, rewind it all the way to the end.
So you hear that click.
And then
It's-
press play again, right? We're only talking about 5 minutes here, right?
Yeah.
And then press play, see if it plays again, make sure it's not eating the tape. And yeah, that's pretty much it with tape decks. But the main thing, and that goes for any piece of equipment, is, somebody saying it works, it works.
Yeah.
Just because the light came on or whatever, right? Whatever level they tested it at, a turntable, if it spins, whatever, right? But the main thing is, their interpretation of it works. I've also heard, it works. So you've played it recently? No, but it worked great. We had house parties and we used it for years. And what they mean is it worked 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes they've even forgot they put it away 20 years ago because it had a problem, but they forgot, right?
Yeah.
A
And
lot of
that's-
times.
those are the ones where you usually find the belts that turn to gum, right?
Well, that's gum, but I'm talking about any piece of equipment.
Yeah.
They'll say that for any piece of equipment. It worked perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course it works. I bought this new and and all that stuff, right? But
People do the same with cars.
yeah. Well, a lot of times with audio equipment, though, they don't. Most of the time, nobody means any. And,
Yeah.
they're not trying,
Well, they
trying
don't
to
think of
deceive
it,
you. They
like-
just don't think of that. They think, there's even I put it away and it's in perfect condition because I put it away 20, 30 years ago. Right?
Yeah.
But just the ambient.
Yeah. They don't
conditions.
realize that
Yeah.
sitting,
Yes.
if you live somewhere humid, who knows what the moisture has done to the internals of that
Yeah.
equipment. Even if it's in a dry thing, just it being dry, like in the cassette deck scenario,
Yeah.
that's drying the belts. So there's lots of different things that happen with just the ambience
Oh yeah.
of just sitting for 20 or whatever amount, even a year of sitting can cause, like for example, the stereos I know, sometimes you have to work the knobs on the vintage equipment just because dust.
Well, it just
and
settles in.
It just finds its way in there.
Corrosion settles into those potentiometers, and switches, and
cause a little bit of noise. And
yeah. I mean, that's the nature of the beast. Those potentiometers, just the way they are, right? But stuff like that can happen just over a little period of time. Even with a car, you take an old car. I remember I found an old Mustang once, and I told the guy about it. It had been sitting for 30 years untouched, right? And the seller saw that as some sort of special thing, it's got this many low mileage, it's been sitting, and the guy I was telling about it, he seemed a little bit upset about it, right?
Yeah.
Finding stuff like that untouched for a low price is great, but when the seller thinks that that's something special, right? An old car, all that stuff is going, because now you're going to have to do a lot of things.
Well,
things dry out.
I work in automotive as well, and in that sense, you usually you can usually get it to start running in some scenarios. But what usually that means is you have to do tear down and all that stuff because all the seals and everything have dried out. Just a matter of time before everything starts to leak and all kinds of electrical wires start to fall apart and you get shorts. It's just
from sitting.
Unless it's
conditions.
put into, I believe they had car bubbles back in the day. They put these cars in bubbles and
controlled.
It's a controlled environment to
museums do that type of stuff.
Yeah, even that I imagine has some problem. But anyway, off topic there. I do have one other question. Just some people might ask. When you're looking at cassette deck, why does some of them have two decks?
So it's usually for the dubbing. So recording, so you would take you want to make a copy of tape.
Okay.
Yeah, so you'd put one in and play it, and you'd record on the other, right?
Okay, so only one of those plays, or do both play?
No, both usually. I think maybe...
Because you see two play buttons on there.
Right, so only one side records on this one, for example.
Yeah.
And this is only play on this side, so I'd have to think a lot to remember if there was one that recorded on both sides. Probably, right?
Mm-hmm.
Probably.
We do have one over there, but I can't remember if
it might, right? But we're getting into the
what
features and stuff. But
just something somebody might ask about why there might be two.
They're two dual deck, right? And then there's just like anything, the more features on a cassette or anything, the more potential for problems, right?
Yeah, complicated.
More complicated, auto rewind, stuff like that. It's just like anything, right? More features, the more complicated, right?
Yeah.
The more potential for problems. It's not a bad thing if everything's working right, well built, no problem.
Yeah.
But
did you want to tell us about this Harman Kardon?
Yeah, one thing we should also mention, right? If you just want to play your tapes, you show up and you're playing and one side doesn't play, right? And the other side does, or there's a problem on one side, there isn't. Yeah, so that's usually an indicator of soon enough the other side's going to go bad as well, right? If it's really cheap and you just want to play your tapes and you're not worried, you don't want to do any dubbing.
$20 unit.
Whatever, right? $20, right? It's just whatever, right? But just know that it's probably eventually headed for that. So, amplifiers and receivers, right? This is an amplifier, so same deal, right? We were talking about all the ambient conditions and time and stuff like that, but the person, it works, and what they mean is that it lit up and they plugged it in,
all the blue lights turned on.
Yeah, and a lot of times, if you go there and somebody might not even know they're playing it and they're demoing it for you, and maybe it does have crackly or whatever, which could be serviced or no problem. But you want to make sure everything works, right?
Yeah.
And if everything doesn't work, you want to, that might play into the price a little bit.
Yeah.
But it depends on how important that feature is.
And also if they've mentioned it before you went to look at it.
Sometimes,
that you go in there and they say, the left channel doesn't work, but they've priced it accordingly to that.
Price it accordingly to
so
that, right?
don't use that as like a method. The left channel does. Well, they've already mentioned that.
Yeah, you just can't be an idiot about it though, because if somebody says like, I'm selling it, this unit, I'm selling it for $200. It's a great unit. You did your research. It's worth that, right? What used, but you can't say, this doesn't work, that doesn't work, and it's going to cost me $300 to have it serviced and fixed or something. They're not going to give it to you for free.
Yeah.
They can't knock $300 off the price, right? Because then, they'd be giving you money, right? So it's just like anything, like a car, right?
Yep.
However, there are things that have negative value, but I mean, if everything's working fine, that's something you should probably buy. However, you want to make sure stuff works. Sometimes, you really can't tell if something's working unless you're it's applicable to what you're trying to do with it, right?
Yeah.
So if you've got, I've seen it a lot where somebody will. Well, this also means you just have to make sure you know what you're doing. Somebody will put on tone defeat, right?
Oh, yeah.
They'll take out the tone, and then they'll be turning the bass. The bass
Nothing's
button's not
changing.
working, the treble's not working, well, you got the tone defeat on, stuff
Turn
like
that
that.
off, and
right?
that might work.
Some people, a common problem is somebody will hit the tape button, and now your source is set up just for tape only, right?
Yeah, and you're not
so the
gonna-
whole thing, they think the whole thing is broken. Is it
Yeah.
working now?
So you do have to know, like there are some stereos that also have, or receivers, sorry, that also have like Dolby settings and that kind of stuff. So you kind of need to know what you're testing when you're going.
Yeah,
'cause
if you know
might
what
not
you're doing,
notice-
you can't accuse the seller of something being wrong with it, right?
Yeah, you might not notice a change because maybe it's not hooked up for whatever that is,
Yeah.
or whatever feature you're testing. But there are some basics like the tones, your tone defeat button, tape in, tape out, that kind of thing. Your balance. Balance is a good one to check. Your left and right channels. Most amplifiers and stereos or receivers have that, right?
What's that?
The balance.
Oh yeah. And that's a good point though, because you'll show up, you look at the amp or the receiver, right? And it applies to turntables too, which we'll talk about. But you'll have sounds coming out. It sounds good, you get it home, and only one side is working.
Yeah.
And it's probably like that at the person's house.
Yeah.
But they might not have even noticed, right? Because they're playing it loud. They never. Oh, it's nothing coming out of that side.
Yeah.
Or that side's really weak, or that side's distorted. So you want to go left and right, and you're going to hear a difference if you have it in stereo, right?
Yeah.
You're going to hear a difference between the two sides because it's in stereo, right?
Yeah.
So that side sounds different, Well, it's because you have it in stereo, and it's switch those now, and now this side's going to sound different.
Yeah,
right?
the sides might be switched.
Well, it's just the way it's this.
You also
thing
want to make
put
sure
into
that
it.
if you're testing your channels that you don't have mono on, right?
Right, yeah. Well, if you have mono on, then it's going to sound like. That's probably the best way to test it. Actually, is put it in mono.
That way the
This
sounds
way,
are
the
equal.
sound is equalized on both sides. But make sure the dynamics of your ears and the room and everything.
And
What I do is I turn
you have
around.
You usually use a tube to test too, as well.
Yeah, well, I
right?
go like this up to it.
Yeah,
That's
like
to
a
a
long
speaker.
cardboard tube.
Yeah,
to-
and I just hold it up to it.
You can
right?
check. That's also for, we could do a video on speaker buying too.
Yeah,
and that's
speaker
kind of
buying.
a part of it. You can take
Yeah.
a long tube so you can check that the woofer and the tweeters.
Yeah,
and
each
all
one
that.
I isolate it. I do it that way. Of course, myself, my own stuff, or if it's somebody I know, we take them out and we get the voltmeter out and
You test the
we test
coils.
the resistance on the speaker, right, to
Yeah.
make sure that's at least correct, or that's at least working. It has resistance, otherwise it's blown. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's you want to make sure both sides work, and the main thing, like if something is $1,000 in a store like here, right?
Mm-hmm.
You might find it on marketplace for $800 or $900, and you wonder why the store won't take less, right? But you gotta remember, when you buy it for that $800 instead of $1,000 at the store, depending on the store's credibility, which most of them are, right? You're in business,
At
right?
this store, we've serviced it.
Yeah,
We've
it's been
gone
serviced.
through.
Yeah. So
There's
that's
only
the
been
thing.
a couple pieces of equipment, I believe, that we've sold where it said, "Oh, the balance doesn't work," but both are working. You just can't change the
That would be like
balance.
a budget discount,
that was like
blowout piece. You know what I
But
mean?
those are that information is.
Oh yeah,
given.
it was deeply discounted, almost
yeah.
given away, right? But
Yeah.
this here,
99% of the equipment here is.
well, everything here has been serviced, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's been serviced. It hasn't been. That's what brings up a good point, though, because you'll see in ads, people will say something's been recapped. It's been recapped, right?
No.
First of all, anybody can say that. I've bought units where somebody says it was recapped, and then when I ask them, so you did it? Yeah, I did. They said they did it. And I go, what kind of soldering iron do you use? And they don't know, and it's like they just said it was recapped.
Yeah.
They just said it was. They probably don't even know what that means.
Yeah.
And if they do, then they, it's a big job.
And not
It's-
and
you have to know what you're
recapping
doing,
isn't
right?
that's probably one of the most mentioned ones.
Oh, it is, right? But it's
Do you find that that's needed a lot of the time?
no, like it depends, right? If somebody wants to put new capacitors in, right, you're going to have to pay more for it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do that, although I've seen units where people are putting in these really inferior capacitors and taking out these ones that are like the old ones, and
Like
when you
top
measure
notch.
them, the ones that they took out are better than the ones that they're putting in, right?
Yeah.
Like it's, Yeah,
It's a downgrade.
Yeah, so sometimes they think that's a something that like I've heard like there's a problem with I'll see it in the ad. It'll say, oh, this unit is something whatever problem they're having. Probably just needs a recap.
Yeah.
That's you could have a bad transistor.
Yeah.
You could have all kinds of different problems. You could have bad resistors, transistors, whatever, right? You could have a lot of different problems going on. A weak solder joint, but everything is always a recap should do the job, then you go and get that done, and probably if you're getting it done, the technician who's doing it will probably say, well, I found something else wrong with it,
Yeah.
But you could have just gotten past that, depending on what you want to do. If you want to buy something like this, let's say this is not a $1,000 unit, but if you want to buy something like this, let's say it was $1,000 here and it was serviced. If you wanted one that somebody went and they documented, the paperwork and everything, professional, full capacitor change recap, you might end up spending $1,600, right?
Yeah.
But if you want a unit that is, been serviced and is working and it's not indicating any problems, it's tested to the, it's doing what it's putting out the amount of power that it's supposed to and all that stuff. Yeah, then you'll get a little bit less. But when you're looking at marketplace, you might see that one for $800, right? And the guy may have even said it was recapped. But then
you've taken a bit of a gamble.
Well, yeah, then you get ghosted or you get blocked or whatever, and now you're like, if I should have just spent the extra $200, because usually what that person does is they'll see something like this, they'll see it in a store like this or one of the other stores, and they'll see it and they'll say, well, it's $1,000, So right away they think they're going to put theirs up for $1,000, right?
Yeah.
And meanwhile, it's it's got crackly channels and it's
could be scuffed up and everything.
and it's been smoked like a cigarette smoke and everything. It's it's really bad and just all kinds of problems. And yet, for some reason, some people just think that's what it's worth because the other guy was selling it for that much. They don't think about condition or whatever. But even if they did, I'm going to knock a couple. I'll put it on there for $8, right? So the buyer will buy it for $800 and they've got all these problems and the person will just tell them to,
just block them or
too
whatever.
bad, we'll block them and all that stuff. But
End of story.
yeah, so that's what you gotta watch out for that, right? If somebody isn't willing to let you test it, don't buy it.
Yeah.
Buy it. I mean, it depends on the situation. Somebody has something and that you get a feel that this person just something that was in their basement or whatever, and the price is like really cheap, But if they want to get anywhere near fully serviced and fully working value, oh yeah, you got to test it.
Yeah, you got to make sure your money's paying for something that's credible. There was one other thing I wanted to mention. There is I don't know if all receivers have them or amplifiers, but I know when you've tested some in the past, they have like a type of safety.
Oh, a protection circuit.
Protection circuit.
Yeah, protection circuit.
You mention that at all?
So, it's kind of like, okay, so
The flow of water.
yeah, well, too much power going to a pair, something has to give, right? Too much power going to a set of speakers, right? Your amp's going to say, it's going to protect itself, right?
Yeah.
And protect the speakers, right? And the same thing the other way around, the speakers require a lot of power, but the amp is, I can't give this much, right? So it's going to go into protection mode, right? Yeah, so I call that clipping. I think that's actually what it is called. I've always called it clipping, right? So it's like, you'll turn up the volume and then it'll kind of cut out, and then you'll turn it down and it'll kick back in, right? And it's kind of like, it's self-explanatory. You're cranking it up and it's cutting out.
Yeah.
Something's not right there. You put it down. So you've got something wrong, or you've got a mismatch happening there, right?
Yeah.
So.
Underpowered or overpowered.
Yeah, the ranges of speakers, amps and speakers, their capabilities, the amp is pretty much set, but the speaker range, there's speakers out there, especially these extremely efficient speakers like clips, right?
Yeah.
The most minimal amount of power, and some of them a ton of power, right? They're able to handle that. And just your average general speakers, they got a pretty good range. You'll see some that are like good from 20 watts to 100 watts, right?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good range.
That's quite a wide range.
You could almost take any amp with those speakers, you know what I mean? Like just about any amp, right? So, but that's what it's all about. It's a protection circuit to keep it from blowing, blowing a transistor, blowing speakers, just blowing
Protecting the equipment.
Protecting the equipment, yeah. Yep.
Is there anything else you want to?
Not on that. There's a lot to say on the turntables as well, right?
So we'll move over to this Ion and the T35.
Well, yeah. So the Harman Kardon. The only reason I got the Ion there,
Yeah.
you can call it whatever, Crosley. What's the other one out there? It's
The suitcase.
Silver Tone or
turntables.
whatever. The suitcase, right? So turntable. You're looking for a turntable. The first thing to understand is that I use the term record player. A record player, you put a record on and the sound comes out of it. This is a record player.
Yeah.
Technically, that's a record player too, but it's really a turntable.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of, I'm sure people have bought a turntable and taken it home, and even demoed at the person's house, taking it home, and how come it's not making? All I can hear is you're talking
You're
about
really
scratching
close.
the stylus,
You
right?
can hear it just in the surface a little bit.
You need an amplifier. Not everybody knows that.
Yeah.
You need an amplifier, right?
Not only an amplifier, you need a phono.
Yeah, you need a preamp, phono stage, right? You need that to do it, right? If your amp has a receiver has phono on it, there you go, right?
Yeah,
you're good to
that's
go, right?
for the turntables.
Yeah, that's right. That's for a turntable, right? And generally, when you have it, and this isn't always the case, because man, they've put out some pretty cheap turntables in the world these days,
Yeah.
right? Just garbage. But,
And some of them have those phonos built in.
yeah,
as
built
well.
in, right? The more they build into the unit, the more. And I should go into that too. Is like those.
I personally don't like when the phonos are built into the turntable.
Well,
For
they're being
own
cheap
opinion,
about it.
My own opinion is I'd rather a high quality phono stage from the receivers,
Yeah.
like the brand, like that. I don't want a basic phono. I'd rather a Lowrance or a Harman Kardon.
Yeah.
One of those phono stages, higher quality.
Yeah, a good quality. I mean, the general rule is the more you're packing into something, these value-added features, it's the cheaper it's going to get.
Yeah.
Just put anything in there. That's basically what they're doing.
Yeah.
It's just anything, just to
And
say it's
that's
got a
even
preamp,
for
right?
auto stop and start. Even
Oh,
those
all that
features,
stuff. The more
even those
features you add, right? I mean, that's why your most expensive turntables out there are just manual, right? Because they put all their money into, making the sound quality as good as possible without having to have those features are features.
Yeah.
They're not sound quality. Automatic functions, right?
Yeah.
But let's talk about really quick about those big pieces of furniture, those console units, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big piece, right? And when those came out, those were more about the furniture than they were about the equipment.
Yeah.
So, they tend to throw the cheapest stuff in there.
Yeah.
So if you're looking, I mean, some people that's just fine, but you hear it all the time. I need a needle for it. I need a needle for it, right? It's hard to find the needles for it, the stylus, right?
Yeah.
And you'll see them on the marketplace or wherever advertised for $1,000 or $2,000 or free.
Yeah.
Most of the time they're free,
Yeah.
which makes me wonder where are these $2,000? Somebody actually buying them?
I was actually going to mention it, but the only thing I can think of is there are some people that will take those and they'll gut that garbage equipment out of it,
Yeah.
and they'll put in
they'll put in the good stuff. Yeah,
So,
you could do
they'll put
that.
in clips and Marantz.
Oh,
and
you
all
can do that.
stuff,
Yeah, you can do that.
Which I think is a really cool feature.
Oh, it is.
Or,
Yeah.
or a thing you can do.
And there were some units that actually came out with the Marantz in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but I mean, those are kind of once you're packaging something all together, the manufacturer was cutting costs
Yeah.
to try and for you to
It
buy
was more
it,
about
right?
the,
It's got this, it's got
appeal
that.
of the furniture style.
Yeah, the furniture.
And, oh, by the
it's-
way, it
yeah.
plays music.
Yeah, so there's that. That you can call that a record player, right? But when it comes to turntables, they'll say just needs belt, right? And belt replacement on a turntable is really easy.
Yeah.
All the time. It's
Yeah.
very easy, right?
There's no difficult
Belts
ones,
are very easy to find. Yeah. When they say just needs needle, stylus, right? Sometimes it could be an obsolete.
Yeah.
It could be obsolete.
It's usually not the difficulty of actually changing; it's the difficulty of
Finding it, and then it could be a lot. I think of the Biogram. Anyway, German, I think, or Switzerland. Anyway, they have a proprietary stylus and cartridge, and you're on the hook for a lot of money for that. Right?
Yeah, 'cause it's
Generally
their own
speaking,
thing.
most of them aren't like that, but they are, right? But yeah, you might be stuck with that. So just needs needle. Make sure that it's something that can be replaced, right? Send me a picture that they can say. I would say to the seller, send me a picture of the like if it's completely missing the needle, then you need a picture of the cartridge or the turntable model number, right? Just anything so you can be able to source that needle, because you might wind up with something that you're just not going to be able to play, right?
Yeah.
Some people like a cracked lid on one of these turntables, no big deal, right? No big deal. I'd rather have one with a cracked lid with everything else being right than
that's
no
more
big deal,
cosmetic.
Right? Yeah, whatever, right? I wouldn't devalue a turntable. I mean, I would devalue it, right?
Yeah.
Because those lids aren't cheap, but I mean, for the right turntable,
They're
whatever,
not cheap
right?
to replace or to repair.
Or to repair, right? Well, they're cheap to repair, but you got to pay somebody like $60 to do it, to polish it out, and even then it won't be perfect, but it'll look pretty good. But they're out there. So I mean, make sure you hear both sounds out of both sides of the turntable.
Yeah.
You might, oh, it sounds great. You take it away, you get home, and it doesn't work out left or right. Seller might not have even known that. Probably didn't even know that because you just hear sound, right? What else? I mean, there's some really cheap ones out there.
I know I've seen a few where belt or direct drive even, where the platter slows down kind of thing. So you want to make sure we use a phone app to check the RPMs.
Yeah, check the RPMs on it.
A couple where after 2 minutes of playing it slows down for some reason.
So your potentiometer on your direct drive is usually the reason for that. Unless they have that servo lock. Can't remember what it's called, but anyway, it locks in the speed, right? The other ones, right, that are direct drive, the ones with a pitch adjustment.
Yeah.
Usually the potentiometer gets to the point that it's so dirty that you'll never be able to adjust it, right? You can feel it because it has resistance.
Yeah.
That's not something that if I was buying it, that wouldn't turn me off. If it was, that's easy. It's very easy to do that, right? To get that, to clean that, right? Some people might not be able to do it themselves, but it's, it should never be something that somebody should have to pay a bunch to get serviced, right? I mean, really, not a lot to be said. If you're buying a turntable that's automatic, make sure you check all the features.
Yeah,
right?
make sure it starts and stops.
Starts and stops, because that could be a real pain if you're, if it's stopping in the middle of the record and taking off. There's adjustments that can be done. But if you're going to go automatic, I don't like fully automatic turntables unless they're really reliable, like Marantz 6200, 6300, right?
Yeah.
Those are really very reliable, right? But even they have their, eventually they'll have a problem and you got to deal with it, right? Adjustments to be made and so on and so forth. But myself, I prefer at the most auto return turntable. That's about it.
Yeah.
Even on a fully manual.
That's kind of nice. It just doesn't spin.
Yeah, even on a fully manual, I have the pop-up thing that gets to the end and triggers the arm to come up.
Install out.
Yeah, exactly. It just pops up. Of course, your platter's still going to turn. That's why I like the Marantz 6300. That's my favorite of an automatic turntable. Gets to the end, and the arm comes up, and it just stops there. Right? The platter stops. The arm comes up. Perfect, right? So, a fully, the manual ones are great. Just make sure it works. Right? Turntable's not as much to be said, but again, if somebody is selling it, they take the arm, they put it on the record, and it spins, they may not have even listened to it. And of course, if it doesn't have the stylus needle, they'll say, works great just because they plugged it in and it spun, and they can't actually test it.
Yeah.
They can't test it. And even though, like, if you get no sound out of one side or the other, it could be a problem with the cartridge, could be a problem with the tone arm wiring.
Could be just the connection.
Yeah.
Those.
Yeah, or tone arm wiring, or if it's the RCA cable connection to the inside of the unit. I wouldn't say that's a difficult repair, but still, you have to take it apart, turn it upside down, remove the,
if you're able to actually listen to it, there's hooked up.
Yeah.
You can sometimes get a hum.
Yeah, well, if it's got a hum, then there's a ground problem, right? And that can happen, right? That can happen, and you don't want that. And depending on the sound, like how loud the hum is, if you have to turn it to max volume and you hear a hum, whatever. Right?
Yeah, that's
no big deal, right? But
and some turntables don't even have a ground.
Well, they're grounded internally. So that's different. Right?
Yeah. So if
it doesn't have a ground cable, it doesn't need a ground cable.
Yeah. So if you see one and you're like, "Where's the ground?" It doesn't need it. It's grounded.
I've walked into friends' houses where they don't have. They just never even. They just live with. I don't know if they ever even noticed the hum or whatever, or thought it was normal, but they never hooked up. Oh, your ground's hooked.
Yeah.
What's that? You get this wire here. You put it to the. Hey, look at that, huh?
The hum's gone.
It's been that way forever, right? So,
yeah.
So anyway, and then speakers. We should talk about speakers. I know you don't have much speakers.
We have the JBLs, I believe, over there.
Yeah, but the surrounds. the surrounds on them, right? Do we have a pair here? People confuse the foam. Let's say, is the foam still good? You know, they confuse it with the grills on the front. That's not foam, that's fabric, right? But yeah, those foams, I would ask the seller to touch them and run their fingers around to make sure they're still good. You don't do it because they'll say that you damaged them, right? But a lot of times, if they run their hands around them, they'll start to crinkle. They'll fall, they'll crumble, they'll fall apart, right? And that's not the end of the world. I mean, but you're gonna have to pay somebody to replace those foam surrounds, right? On a good pair of speakers, it's worth it. On a cheap pair of speakers, it's not worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But yeah, get the seller to do that.
Like if it's a pair of C2s or something, they'll work it.
Yeah, and then get the seller to, or you know, you want to test all the drivers. Like I said, I take just like a Christmas wrap, the paper roll, and I hold it up. You know, personally mine, I check them all with a multimeter to make sure there's resistance, right?
You check the back coils where the positive and negative.
I remove each speaker.
Excuse me. When we look, we don't really want to buy them unless the seller lets us really look at them.
Oh yeah, you got to test them unless they're super cheap and they're a premium brand. But even then, if it's an obsolete driver, like a tweeter, mid-range, or you know, like some of them are just like, or really expensive to the point where you know, the seller, and a lot of times the seller will be selling them, and they're let's say a JBL L100 Century, and they'll be asking $1,000 or $1,500, and then you show up, you look at them, and you know, great, you know, and then you find out that one of the woofers isn't working or something's not working. Now you're going on eBay and you're spending hundreds of dollars for another one, right?
Yeah.
Hundreds of dollars, and you know, if two things are gone, you might have, you know, but a lot of times the seller will just say, you know, I don't care, I know you can get it cheaper than that or whatever, and I still think they're worth it, and then you're going to have to walk, right?
Yeah, and then you have a choice to make there.
Yeah, that's just the way it is.
We did have.
But you want to make sure you test them, otherwise you're on the hook.
Yeah.
So hold the thing up and listen. If you have time, and the seller, I doubt it, is willing to let you remove them all, right?
Yeah.
Because then somebody could say, well, it was working fine until you took it out of the, you know, cabinet.
We did have a pair we bought a couple months ago, I think, where we pulled it apart to test the coils on the back. Those big, I can't remember what the name was, but with the big horns on them and everything.
Oh yeah, those are a pair of Altec knives.
The Altecs.
Of the theater.
We got them home and went to go.
Oh no, are you talking? Oh, you're talking about the clips with the passive radiators.
No, it was the Altecs.
Oh, the Altecs.
Yeah,
okay.
we went to go take the speakers out to really, you know, clean up the unit, and we thought that the drivers were missing on the two of them because you could see the woofers.
No, that was the clips. Those are passive radiators, so they had no magnet on the back of the speaker.
Those giant speakers, those are the ones that had the passives.
No, they didn't. No, the big clips we had where we took it out, we're like, what's with these speakers? Somebody removed the things. Yeah. No, that wasn't on the Altecs.
Oh, okay.
That was on the clips. Those were passive radiators.
Yeah.
But we didn't think at first. We thought, what happened here? Somebody removed like the magnet, like the actual. That's nothing but the cones and surrounds and. Okay, so this is a model with passive radiators on it.
And it was nothing was missing. It was just something.
Passive radiators.
Passive
radiators. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just something else we could talk about speakers. Just really cool things they do to make sound, like to improve the sound quality.
So not equipment, but I'd like to point out records also. You got to be careful with that because some people will say a record, like you'll buy records and they'll say, you know, perfect. I always took good care of my records, you know, and then there's, you know, chunks of them, you know, or scratch, really, really bad, you know, and people have, you know, even myself, I like to think that my CDs are perfect, you know, my collection of CDs and stuff, and I'll pull out a CD and I'll go, oh man, that's pretty good. Yeah. I must have like let it hit the floor, I don't know, but sometimes people just don't remember that something is, you know, records are scratched.
Records, maybe they moved 4 times in the time that since they last picked up, and just moving boxes, maybe they dropped one, something dropped on it, dust got in there, it's, you know, all kinds of things that kind of wear them out, so you want to pull them out.
So yeah, again, marketplace, if you bought it and it's scratched really bad to the point where you can't even play it, and you know, you took it home or wherever, marketplace, sale, flea market, garage sale, whatever, you take it home, that's it, you know, like it's highly unlikely you'll get to return it, so you want to kind of check it out. And on that note, there's some records that will you know, amazing how they play. I find the old ones, right, the thicker old records, scratched to hell, still play.
Yeah.
You know, still play pretty good. And then beyond that, though, the ones that have, you know, you can't even see a scratch.
It's like a hairline.
Skip hairline. So
it's really weird how like you can have one that looks like with your belt sander, just plays noisy, but it plays.
yeah, just
No
plays,
skip
yeah.
stuff, and you get one that looks like a piece of hair fell on it.
Yeah,
It's for some reason that's it.
or even
So,
you can't even see it, right?
yeah, it's just so
Yeah.
minor.
All right.
Is there anything else you wanted to mention on these ones, or?
No, looks like you've got customers waiting to come in here, so I think we'll wrap it up anyway.
So that'll be the end of that. Please remember to check out the website, eaglerockrecords.ca, and then we're also on Facebook and Instagram. Come check out the store. We're here in New Horizon Mall in Balzac, and please remember to subscribe. And thanks for watching. One more thing to add here. What do you think of these guys?
Yeah, these here, right? I think that these ruin the vinyl experience for people, a potential lover of vinyl records, because they're under different names. Ion, Crosley, I don't know, different names, Admiral, whatever. Anyway, they're very, very cheap. They
Yeah.
ruin the vinyl experience for people. So somebody will be okay, if you just want to get into vinyl, you think it's cool, you know, where you're 20 years old, you just want to get into vinyl. And then,
Or if it's like a 6-year-old, we've seen that too.
yeah, like whatever, right? You just put it on. It's cool to play some records, right? However, eventually you'll wind up putting it up for sale. That's if it doesn't break first. You'll put it up for sale because it just doesn't sound all that great, you know?
Yeah.
It doesn't sound all that
these are the speakers.
These are the speakers. My God, the amplifier is
it's-
probably, you know,
It weighs like maybe 2 pounds.
the amplifier is
It's-
probably the size of my, thumbnail, right, kind of thing, right? And they break real easy.
Yeah.
Like everything is just, they're put together so cheap, and it's a really, really cheap product. Vinyl does not sound good on them.
I think it's a
would
cool
not
idea,
recommend it.
but it's
Yeah.
definitely so underdone that it's it's for the very most basic.
Well, it might as well say Fisher Price on it.
Yeah.
It really should. Like Fisher Price would probably be premium, you know?
Yeah, they probably wouldn't even want to put their name on that.
No, they wouldn't, right? It's a shame. I apologize to anybody who owns one, right? That I'm saying this, but I just think it ruins the vinyl experience for people.
The quality that a record gives just doesn't come off on those. The sound is flat.
Yeah,
It's
the stylus
very-
probably costs at level 1 of manufacturing. The stylus probably costs like 2 cents.
Yeah, it's
Like
it's such a cheap way to go. Like if it's for like a child or something, just to
Yeah.
get started, see if they like it. Maybe
Yeah.
that's good enough. But
Again, I
if
apologize
you-
saying that, because I know some people, but you can honestly get into a full system for less than $250, something that's absolutely screams and good
Yes,
sound,
below
like
this, like that million times better.
a million times better. Get yourself some vintage equipment, and
Yeah,
that was built in the heyday of vinyl, and
yeah.
that's what I think of those.
Yeah, those aren't. Yeah, I don't like them either.
This has been a Brush Cut Productions video.